Hi, my name is Stephen Hawes, the founder and CEO of Opulo, and this is the February 2026 Opulo company update. Opulo is an open source hardware company making the Lumen PNP, which is a desktop pick and place machine used for automatically assembling electronic components onto circuit boards. The Lumen PNP is meant for assembling PCBs in a wide range of production scales, anywhere from just a handful of boards for a quick prototyping run, all the way up to production of a few thousand units a year. Like we do here, using the Lumen PNP to build boards that go into the Lumen PNP, literally making its own parts. As always, this video goes along with the blog post on our website. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click the link in the description to follow along there. Okay, folks, it's a big one this month. A lot of stuff is going on. But first, as always, we will start with our lead times. We're still actively looking for assembly techs in the Pittsburgh area. So if you live in the area and you want to help us make pick and place machines, please apply. There's a link in the blog post, or you can just go to careers.opulo.io. As always, the lead time listed on the product page on our website is always the most accurate place to find out how long it's going to take for something to ship. That is what we promise that we will be able to get it to you by. Internally, we've actually brought it down a fair amount. Internally, our lead time for lumens and feeders is actually closer to like 2 or 3 weeks, but we're keeping it at 4 for now because we like to have a buffer. And also we're about to move production and we want to have a little bit of baked in buffer for that move as we're setting up the new space. But more about the move in a little bit. Okay, next up is the feeder loading station. Since the last update, the team and I have gotten together a full DVT unit. It's really nice having one around just for loading a feeder. Just having it on my desk to be able to power a feeder it's great. It's really nice to have one. This is currently where it stands in kind of random assortment of colors. It actually prints in this orientation, and that's what gives it the most strength and the fewest supports, which is pretty nice. I did spend a fair amount of time looking at the power delivery recommendation that y'all put in the comments on last video. Thank you all so much for that recommendation. I love it, and I want to do it eventually, but I don't think it makes sense to do right now. We would need a power delivery management chip on board, which in and of itself is not that expensive, but power delivery at most puts out 20 volts, and the feeders run on 24. And functionally, I think the feeders could still probably work just fine running on 20 and not needing a whole buck converter to bring the 20 volt rail up to 24. They should work okay, but I want this to be a good analog for an actual lumen. I want it to be representative. So if I were to do this, I'd want to add the boost converter, and that's a whole thing in and of itself and would drive the cost up a little bit. All this being said, I love this idea. I love power delivery. I love USB-C as a standard, although it is a little bit messy and kind of all over the place. It's really nice to have one kind of power brick, one kind of cable, and one kind of accessory port. I like that, and I'd like for us to live within that. So what I'm thinking about doing is getting this one out now, especially because so many people are so interested in this. I want to get it out to folks immediately, and then we'll work on a power delivery upgrade board for this down the road. That will probably be a little bit more expensive, but then we'll have 2 options. But I want to get this one that's effectively done and cheaper out first because it's so wanted. And then if we want to, we can come out with a different version down the road, which I would like to do. I think it would be cool. We are sending this DVT unit out to a beta customer so we can get some feedback on it. And we're actively working on sourcing all the parts for a PVT run. So we should have this in the web store, I'm hoping very soon. A lot of stuff's going on here, but that's very much something I'd like to get out the door so y'all can use it as soon as possible. And also the repo is free and open source if you want to build one yourself. It's on our GitHub. You can go check it out. There's a link in the blog post. All right, next up is wide feeders for 16 and 24 millimeter tape. The beta is coming along really well, and people have been using them now for a couple months, but there is a change that I'm considering making. Some people really like to use these brass splice clips is the best way to describe these, the most common word I can find on how they're described. And they effectively rivet 2 pieces of tape together using the holes that are running along the side of the tape that's used to actually move the tape forward. These are handy for connecting 2 spools together, and the EIA 481 standard does not actually officially recognize this as a valid way to splice tape, but people still do it, and I'd like to support it if possible. The reason that this does not work super well with the current design of the wide feeders is that it's a constrained height for the tape. If you have varying tape height, especially throughout the course of an actual single strip of tape, it's more likely to jam, and I don't want that if I can help it. For normal tape, it works great, but I'd like to support this if possible. This whole thing gets way easier to facilitate when the top of the pick window is spring-loaded down into the tape. And this gets us a couple things. It allows the thickness of the tape to vary, and we still apply a constant pressure downwards. So regardless of the thickness of any clip that's going through the tape, this is going to move to accept that. And it also just helps across the board for different thicknesses of tape. Although 16 and 24 is by and large about the same thickness along the rails with the plastic emboss, it's still nice to have that flexibility. And it also holds it compliant along a flat surface, so it's keeping it more steady and stable as it feeds. I'm in the middle of doing a lot of prototyping for this feature to see how it pans out, and so far it looks great. I actually have a test build here. This is the exact same frame of the 2U feeder that I sent out to beta customers, except this now has a spring-loaded pick window on the front. There's just a couple torsion springs in the nose here, and this window comes down and holds the tape down into the indexing wheel. So regardless of the thickness, it can move and bow to accept any thickness that's going through it. I do like this quite a bit. I literally got this print off the printer this morning, so I still need to go and put all the electronics in and actually start having it run some tests with this, but I feel really good about it so far. So actively working on this. It's gonna add a couple more things to our PVT build sourcing list, like these torsion springs. I'm trying to find some off-the-shelf ones, and there are some that work okay, but I think it would be nicer if we got some actual custom-made torsion springs, ideally a double torsion spring, for this whole thing to put enough power, enough torque in the nose in a really small space that still applies enough pressure onto the thickest plastic tape that could have a significant bow. I really want to make sure it's going to facilitate that. But as always, we're going to try and find some off-the-shelf thing that's a good surrogate or compatible thing, or make it available on our web store if people want it for their own builds. But it feels correct. Like, it feels like the right solution to this. So I'm going to continue to pursue this, and I'll let y'all know what happens. As of February 5th, my current pass of this is on GitHub, so if you want to go to the feeder repo, check out the 2U branch, you can look at what I've done here and play around with it if you're so inclined. We're moving ahead on sourcing parts for our PVT build of 2U feeders, so we'll hopefully be able to make probably a few dozen pretty soon, ideally with this added spring-loaded pick window, and then from there it's on to production. All right, other feeder-related news is we made a 1.5.0 release of the feeder CAD and a 1.0.5 release of Photon. I know, it's a little confusing. All the changes across the board here are not sweeping, they're small incremental updates that just make things a little better. For the CAD, we changed a couple things in regards to the geometry that holds the drive motor to make it more consistent and held more orthogonal to the frame after being torqued in place. This is feedback from some folks on our line and just generally how things go together in the feeder. We made the drive motor bracket hug the motor frame a little bit better, kind of going in line with the frame change. We opened up the hole in the drive motor cover to facilitate some integrated one-piece wheels that we're working on sourcing right now, which just makes assembly a little bit easier for us. We also shaved down the height of the peel worm gear and rounded it off a little bit, so it decreases the interference between peeled film and the peel worm gear, along with adding a film guide on the spool holder, which also helps guide it away as well. This is also present in the tape guide that comes along with 12mm feeders. But yeah, good changes to the frame. Most of it's for manufacturability. Also some firmware updates. This is a small tweak update, small quality of life improvements, little tweaks to accuracy and reliability. Thank you so much to Analogy or Solo Mute on GitHub. A lot of your work and feedback in getting this version of Photon out. We increased the peel time per 10th millimeter variable. This just peels a little bit more per 10th millimeter of fed distance. We also tweaked our ticks per 10th millimeter constant based on Analogy's microscope analysis of the gearbox, which is super cool, so that's great. And also in the Photon command for programming slots, we now gate that command on which UUID was also sent along with the packet. It's just a nice little gate to make sure the right stuff happens. This firmware update is recommended for all feeders, so definitely recommend flashing on your feeders and checking it out. Okay, lastly is the office. Some very exciting news here. We have signed a lease on a new space. It is a 410% space increase with a proper loading dock and a freight elevator and even a mezzanine. There is a lot of work ahead to make this happen and get our 3,200 square feet moved into 13,000 square feet. And that's a lot of what I'm working on right now. This is gonna let us grow in a way we can't in this current space and actually make appreciable moves to bring our lead time down. Not small tweaks or patches, but like big sweeping updates to how many people we have on staff, how much space we have, how much inventory we can store here, so that we bring our lead time down to same day. That is my goal. That's what I want to make happen. It would be so cool. So over the next couple months, I'm gonna be getting everything squared away for the move, packing, organizing, working with movers. I've also gone ahead and modeled the entire floor plan for the space. This one was a little too small, so I printed it out in panels. And this is a 1.1% scale model of the office. I've also modeled a fair amount of our furniture as well with magnets embedded in them, so I'm gonna put a sheet of steel underneath this and I'll be able to actually lay out physically with where stuff can go. Everything we're gonna have in there is on casters, so it's gonna be really easy for us to rearrange and reorganize how the production line is going to operate as easily, almost as easily as we can move these around on a magnetic sheet. Obviously, I've modeled the whole thing in CAD and I could just do it digitally, but there's something about physically being able to see how stuff is gonna fit together that helps me understand how we should lay it out. I'm also planning on shooting and posting a tour of our current office here at its most full before we move. So I'll make sure I post that on the Opulo channel. So make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss it and you can see what we're dealing with here, trying to keep up with production in this space. And hopefully I'm going to also try and get a full like 3D scan, LiDAR scan of the whole space, and I'll put it up online so you can like do a little virtual walkthrough tour of the space too. I think that'd be kind of cool. Anyway, all very exciting. We're really stoked to move in the new spot. It has everything we need. It's gonna be great. All right, lastly, as always, is our job postings. We have a bunch of stuff up right now, so if you go to careers.opulo.io, you can go and see what we're hiring for. Some remote, a lot of in-person, so especially if you're in the Pittsburgh area, please don't hesitate to go check it out, and if you think you'd be able to contribute in some way, please apply. Great, that's it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments about this format or other things you'd like for me to talk about in these types of videos, please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the YouTube video, or you can go to support.opulo.io and shoot us a message there. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great February, and I'll see you next month.